morning and welcome to, as Doris reminded us, the 9th year of History Bites, and it is our intention through this program, which was established by Sally Wynn Italy over there, to educate people in an informal and casual way about the history and characters of Boca Grande's past. This is not formal history, this is informal history, and we hope that it's fun for everyone, and we also encourage questions and comments maybe after these gentlemen are finished, but we certainly encourage any comments or questions. I'd like to say a few things about the way things were in Boca Grande when we grew up here. Believe it or not, Boca Grande was significantly different in a number of ways that made the experience of living here different than it is today. One thing, the community was, as you can imagine, and as many of you, I'm assuming that I'm talking to people who don't know anything, so those of you who do know a lot, maybe as much as I do, just bear with me. But some of you newer people probably find it difficult to imagine how it was before the bridge. And that was a significant turning point in our history. And interestingly enough, I was calculating this morning, and between the time the railroad came in here, let's call it 1910, the Gasparilla Inn was built, the town was laid out, the port, phosphate loading elevator was built, power plant, so on and so forth. That was in 1910. Bridge came in 1958. So that's 48 years. And if you subtract 58 from 2006, you get 48 or 49 if you call it 7. So the period of time BB, before bridge, and AB, after bridge, both were 48-year periods of time. So what was it like before the bridge was built? We had a train, which was passenger and freight, because of course it brought the phosphate here. We had a port. We had essential services, a drugstore, grocery store, several grocery stores actually. And we had several communities, several distinct communities on the island. We had the South Dock community, which is where I grew up. We had, of course, the Boca Grande town community, and then we had the fishing village of Gasparilla up at the north end of the island. And to get there was not easy. The road was paved until you got to the Lee County, where Lee County stopped and Charlotte County began, and then it was just a rutted sand road from there on to the little community of Gasparilla. And in between these communities, there was nothing but woods. South of First Street, immediately south of First Street, was where the Boca Grande Hotel was, and then after you got past the Boca Grande Hotel, it was just woods all the way down to the south end of the island, and the same was pretty much true here. Journey's End, which is about a mile up the road, was the last house, and after you passed Journey's End, there was nothing up there. Another significant difference is that the ratio of year-round residents to non-year-round residents was considerably greater. That is, the number of year-round residents proportionately was greater than it is now. And the winter people who came here and had houses on the beach would come and spend the winters, and for the most part didn't get actively involved in the community. They did a great many things for the community by, especially people like Mrs. Crownshield, but they weren't actively involved in the community. So the year-round working people organized the Kiwanis Club, and the Women's Club was organized prior to the great influx of new people. So it was made up of local year-round residents, as was the Kiwanis Club. So we had a community of ordinary working class people who lived and worked here. You couldn't commute here. If you worked here, you had to live here because it was too expensive to come across on the ferry and too impractical to come across on the train. And so it was a self-contained community. Also, we had a black community, which was fairly significant. It extended from Whiddens west on 1st Street to Palm Avenue, and then up Palm Avenue to 2nd Street. So it was about 5 square blocks, and within that area were typical Florida cracker style houses with front porches and back porches, and dirt roads that connected the various houses, churches, and so we had diversity, I guess is what I'm trying to say here. We had a lot of diversity. And as far as what it was like for kids growing up, it was like, I remember asking, I was on this Parks and Recreation Committee in Lee County for a while years ago, and I said to Sabrina, our daughter, I said, Sabrina, what do you think, what's your concept of a park? And without even hesitating, she said, Boca Grande. Boca Grande had all this, this area to roam around in. It had beaches to swim. It had boats and fish and all of that sort of thing. And kids, and there was no crime. I mean, that was virtually unheard of. So kids could roam from one end of the island to the other. They could go swimming, they could go fishing, they could do all kinds of things that people pay big bucks to go somewhere and do now. And so what I'm trying to do here, because I know these guys are going to tell you some great stories, and I want to just kind of paint that picture of the backdrop, if you will, for their stories. So now I'm going to introduce these special guys. This is Billy Dumplin Wheeler. He is a fishing guide, and he also runs a vessel that carries 4th graders from the Charlotte County school system to environmentally pristine areas for the purposes of educational and environmental education. Mr. Sullivan here is a businessman and has been for many years. He's had businesses in different parts of the state, and he now owns and manages statewide pest control. So, which one of you guys want to go first? Or are you going to talk simultaneously?
I'd just like to make one statement. This isn't prepared. This is spontaneous. Whatever comes out is going to come out. Not when you go ahead and start.
I don't work.
You want me to start? I'll start.
Yeah.
I'll just give you a quick background of myself, okay? I came to Boca in 1945. I was about 5 years old. My mother married into the Coleman family, okay? And I'm sure you all know the history of the Colemans, the Darners, the Padellas. There's a whole bunch of them. I'm related to all of them by marriage. I personally lived in 2 houses. I was raised on, Roberta just made a good point there. I was full grown before I knew that I lived on Tarpon Avenue. And that's a fact. It was called Whitewash Alley. All my time that I was growing up, okay? And that house, if you see it, the one that's got the big 8-foot fence is where I was raised at part of the time. The second part is in this house on 3rd Street. Now this is one of my favorite pictures because this is my grandmother, Nona Coleman. I don't know how many of y'all know her. I know that several of y'all do here. And basically, if you've been by there on 3rd Street, you've seen that house gutted. And I know that the rule is that you try to replace board for board. But I can honestly tell you, I did the termite inspection on this house, and in my industry, they tell you that if the termites are holding hands is what's keeping the house up.